Hey everyone and welcome back to the channel. This is Dave, and ever since I posted the video about the last ever iPod, which was the iPod Touch 7th generation, a few people have requested that I also take a look at the first iPod Touch. So, here we are. Let's rewind a bit back to 2007. The original iPhone just dropped. It was sleek, it was futuristic, and it changed everything. But it was expensive, $499 on contract. And not everyone wanted to switch to AT&T just to get one. And that's where the iPod Touch came in. For just $299, you could get something that looked almost identical, ran the exact same operating system, iPhone OS 1, and had the same beautiful multi-touch screen. For a lot of people, this was the budget iPhone. Well, minus the phone. On the surface, the two devices were actually very similar. Can you even tell which one is which? Both featured the same groundbreaking 3.5-inch multi-touch display, although the one on the iPod Touch was slightly inferior. It had lower brightness and lower contrast as well. They also ran the same operating system, which was iPhone OS 1, and went up to iPhone OS 3.1.3, as they had the exact same processor and RAM, 128 megabytes. So yeah. One notable difference, however, was that the iPod Touch had a black bezel instead of the iPhone 2G's silver bezel. This was a deliberate choice by Apple to make it feel a bit less premium. Both devices had headphone jacks, although the one on the iPod Touch wasn't recessed, you can clearly see here, so you could use any headphones that you wanted. And they also used the exact same 30-pin charging cable. So what did you lose by saving $200? Well, before I get into that, if you're enjoying the video, please consider subscribing to the channel, because believe it or not, only about 10% of people who watch my videos are actually subscribed. It really helps me a lot since I'm just starting out, so thank you so much. But back to the video. What did you lose by saving $200 over an iPhone? Well, quite a bit actually. The iPod Touch had no phone functionality, so you couldn't make or receive phone calls and you couldn't text. And keep in mind, iMessage didn't exist yet. It wouldn't arrive until 2011, so 4 years later. It also lacked a camera, a microphone, physical volume buttons, which was quite a big one, as you couldn't quickly adjust the volume. You actually had to go into the music app and adjust the volume from there, which was quite annoying because the iPhone did have physical volume controls. It also didn't have a speaker, so while there was a small speaker inside of the iPod, it was only used for system sounds like locking or unlocking the device. Have a listen. So this was the sound of the lock or unlock. This was the sound of the keyboard. And when you plugged it in, this is the the sound that it made. So yeah, that was quite funny, but you couldn't use that speaker to play any media. And perhaps most frustrating of all, software updates weren't free. To upgrade from iPhone OS 1 to iPhone OS 2, Apple charged $9.95, so basically $10 to update the iPhone. And the same applied when moving up to iPhone OS 3. Now, can you imagine paying for software updates today? Imagine Apple asking users to pay $10 to upgrade to iOS 26.
That's just incredible.
That would be completely crazy, and most people probably wouldn't even bother updating. Meanwhile, iPhone 2G users got all of those updates for free. It was only iPod Touch users who had to pay for major software upgrades. But even so, with no volume controls or no speaker, the sound quality of this iPod was fantastic. It uses a Wolfson DAC, similar to the iPod 5 with video, offering a clean and warm sound with great stereo separation typical of early Wolfson DACs. The only downside is that the output power was quite low and it struggled to drive power-hungry headphones, but all in all, it was probably the best sounding iPod Touch ever. Now you might be wondering what the black plastic cutout on the back is. Well, that was used for Wi-Fi pass-through, since the entire body of the iPod was made from stainless steel. The cutout is much smaller than the one on the iPhone, since there was no Bluetooth or cellular connectivity. Most of the complaints of the first iPod Touch were actually addressed with the second generation. It finally added physical volume buttons, Bluetooth support, and a proper speaker for media playback. And it also significantly improved the battery life. Apple also swapped out the Wolfson DAC for its Cirrus Logic one, which offered more power and clarity. Though in my personal opinion, it lacked the warmth and the character of the Wolfson. Now, going through the UI of the iPod, of course, we have iPhone OS 3.1.3, which was extremely basic. Like you could change your wallpaper. You had a few iPod specific wallpapers here, And yeah, this was the entire settings page. Look at how tiny it is. It almost fits into one single page, which is quite interesting. Now, of course, you had the App Store, which sadly isn't working anymore. You also had Safari, which also isn't working anymore, but you can do a few Google searches here and there, which is quite interesting. But yeah, it's basically unusable today. You also had Mail and a few other apps. Now, of course, today you can't install any new apps without jailbreaking the iPod, but back in 2007 you could install all the apps that the iPhone supported, which was very cool. So why does this thing matter today? Well, the iPod Touch first generation was a turning point. It was the first iPod that really felt like a smartphone. It paved the way for the App Store, mobile gaming, streaming apps, and eventually the iPad. It was also Apple's first step in separating iPhone OS from the iPhone itself. An idea that carried through for years. So is it worth buying today? Well, let's be honest, you're probably not buying this to use it daily. It maxes out at iOS 3, the App Store doesn't work, and none of the apps or most websites work. But as a piece of tech history, it's worth picking up. You can find them on eBay for cheap, and if you're into collecting Apple products or if you want a dose of 2000s nostalgia, it's a gem. I got this for about $50 on eBay, but given that it's in basically brand new condition, I would say it was an okay deal. But yeah, let me know what you think about this, and if you ever had an iPod Touch first generation, and if there are any other Apple products that you would like me to cover on the channel, feel free to drop a comment down below. And with that said, this was Dave on Tech, and I'll be seeing you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching.